My oldest memory is feeling that I was different and separate from other people. I remember looking at my family and saying, wow, I am a separate person. And nobody taught me any differently. My mom was a wonderful mother. In fact, when I was a little girl, she told me about BHA and BHT in cereal way back when. So I had a great role model. I used to look at 3 years old or 4 years looking for BHA and BHT on the cereal box. So thank you, Mama. So I always felt very different, and I struggled a lot, and I suffered a lot, and I questioned a lot. Why do people suffer in life? I was just always thinking. And back to the conditioning, I have a picture of 3A. That was the American Dairy Council and the meat associations coming into school and telling us how we're supposed to eat. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You would get those food pyramids, and this is all the conditioning, and this is what they want you to do. And now, you know, I'm living such a different life, and everybody is like, why are you doing this? Like, I go into restaurants, I'm the weirdo, as you all are, and you're like asking for these special foods because everybody's been conditioned to eat a certain way. So again, struggled a lot with why do we suffer? You know, I was suicidal as a teenager, just really, really suffered a lot in my life. This here is doctors handing me pills. I was on a lot of medication. I was on medication for acne, Accutane I was on. Recently I heard about an Accutane case, and I called the lawyer and I said I was on Accutane. He said, well, I'm only taking cases of people that have this severe bowel disorder. Do you have this bowel disorder? I said, no. I had a vision problem, and he said, well, I can guarantee you that that toxic drug hurt your eyes, but I have so much business for the stomach that I don't need your case, and no one's going to take your case. So I was on some pretty bad stuff for many, many years. So I developed all kinds of fun stuff. I had leaky gut, anxiety, depression, acne, food issues, gas, bloating, all of it. I had severe, severe PMS, awful PMS. So on birth control pills since I've been a teenager. So eventually I got on the path, and this is my first part of my path. I drove all the way out to California my senior year of high school with my mother to go and find myself because I just was suffering so much here. So my path has been pretty wild to find where I am today. So that's how it began. I got into yoga as a vegetarian, and moved away from that eventually because doctors told me I needed to eat meat, and I was having memory issues, and I needed to, you know, they just pushed me back to eat. All the doctors always push you back to eating standard American diet. So I started to feel a lot better. But then I had this little bundle of joy. I had 2 children. I have a daughter, 17, I have a son who is turning 15, and he was my lesson. So in kindergarten, a teacher called me and said, we can't teach your son anymore. He stares into space, and we just can't teach him. And I was like, okay. So he came home, and I got down on my knees, and I said, we are going to figure this out. And he said to me in kindergarten, he's like, I can't do what I want to do. The teacher tells me to do it, and I want to do it, and every kid wants to do it. That's what I tell parents. I come in contact with kids all the time that have issues, and I said, every kid wants to succeed. They all want to follow their parents. They all want to do what the teachers tell them to do, but they can't. So the biggest gift you can give your child is to get them to thrive and to figure out why they're not thriving and not giving them the medications, because all of that, the ADD, it's just a name for a set of symptoms, and you have to find out, why is my child having these symptoms? And that's what I did. So first I put him on the drugs. It's awful. Doctors just told me he has moderate to severe ADD, he needs medication. Gave him medication in these colored little pills, which is crazy because I later found out that the color on the pill was the problem, a big part of his problem.
Was that Ritalin?
He wasn't on Ritalin, but I found that on the internet, so I put Ritalin in. But he was on speed. He was on a different medication. He was on Wellbutrin at one point.
Oh my God.
He was on all kinds of medication as a kindergartner, and I would come in at night, and he was petrified. He had such anxiety from these medications. His heart was racing. It was awful. So what happened is one day I was making dinner with him, and we were eating jelly beans. And I looked at my son and I'm like, what is wrong with him? His tongue was flailing all around his mouth and he had no control over his body. And it was right before my eyes. I'm like, you just ate jelly beans. And I ate jelly beans and I felt pretty crazy too. So a lot of people said, oh yeah, it's the sugar. And no, it wasn't the sugar. What I did was I looked up that night on the internet and found the Feingold diet. And there's Feingold diet here. Feingold is Dr. Feingold from the 70s. He fought M&M Mars. He had huge companies against him. He was this little doctor. And I put my son on the Feingold diet on Friday night. And by Monday, he was off of his drugs and on the Feingold diet. So Feingold is no artificial anything, and they take out salicylate foods, which is like peaches, apples, like handful of food. And the teachers are like, he's not on his medication. They're like, he's never been better. That was 48 hours.
That's
on
astonishing.
Astonishing. 48 hours. So I also met Arnold around this time, and I call this the other side. We found the other side. So we found Arnold, we found Feingold. I read a lot. So, I got my son his help, but I kept reading and reading and reading. So China Study was a huge impact on me. What's the other guy that I like on Channel 12?
Natalie Eamon?
No, it's Eat to Live, not Eat to Live, that's Diamond.
Foreman.
So those were my two biggest impacts, was China Study. Joe Furman, thank you. My son and daughter and I went and testified in front of the FDA. We were on the world news about the impact of artificial additives. After a while, I had to go back to the drawing board because my son, at like 3rd grade, he hit a roadblock and was just struggling again. So he wasn't the way he was before, but he needed more help. And it's then that we figured out from alternative doctors, that's my picture here, I went to the other side of medicine and found these wonderful doctors. And they helped me realize that he needs to go gluten and dairy free. So he's still to this day gluten, dairy free and thriving. Thriving. Teachers are like, I would never say this kid had ADD. He has no focus issues. He is completely thriving. So my takeaway there is that is the biggest gift that you can give your child. So if you know anybody whose kids are on ADD medication or struggling in any way with that type of situation or any type of situation, find out if there's a medical cause, and diet to me is number one. I've done a lot of things, but diet has been the most impactful. So my symptoms disappeared once I went vegan, and then the more I've gone down this journey to being mostly raw. So I eat, I'd say like half of the week I'm eating fully raw days. So the only time I'm eating cooked food is when I'm having dinner with my family. My husband will prepare a meal and I'll just eat some cooked vegetables with my kids. And then if I'm going out, sometimes I'll eat a cooked meal if I don't see enough stuff on the menu that's appealing to me. But I don't crave cooked foods. That's not why I'm eating cooked foods. It's completely a social thing. It's completely just what society does. So I do it. I have to say, like, I did a 3-week raw challenge recently, and the difference I saw was like fuel in my body. It was like instead of 92 octane, I was 94.
Life force.
Yeah, I had such energy. I felt so clean. But I made myself so clean already that the difference from going to where I was to fully raw was not enough for me to fully go raw. So I do feel the best eating raw. I have to tell you that. But I'm so clean already that it wasn't like this monumental change that I was like, all right, I'm going to be 100% raw. So I do eat a little bit. But in the summer, especially now that it's getting warmer, like I seriously love eating raw, and it's the way I feel the best. So again, everything went away. I had severe acne in my 30s. I was still breaking out terribly all over my back. I have nothing, no acne. Anxiety.
She's 78.
Anxiety. I'm 48. And severe anxiety, depression, and what else? Feeling very overwhelmed. Like my whole life is on top of me. I work full time. I have 2 kids. I have a very, very busy schedule, and I can tell you I never feel stressed. I just don't feel stressed. I just feel very on top of my life. And what this has brought for me beyond everything I told you is spirituality, which I'll tell you about. So people say to me all the time, how can you live this way? And I say, how can I not? And people look at my son and they say the same thing. So there was the boy whose mother was really on top of him, who, Sandy Hook, remember? He went and killed his mother and he killed all those children. So after I saw that, I went into my son and I'm like, hey. I was thinking, why don't we just like stop all this dairy-free and gluten-free and you can just eat whatever you want. You can be in like a slower class in school. And he just looked at me like, are you crazy? Like, he's living his life that he knows the impact that this food has had on him. So, how could I not? So, I feel the dietary changes have had the biggest impact. I am about 6 years ago, I started meditation, mindfulness meditation. I also do Kundalini yoga, a lot of Kundalini. And I've done like chakra work where every morning I clear my chakras, and so I'm majorly into all this, but I feel like my dietary changes have really brought me to this point. And I feel now, this is my belief today, is that we all need to clear our bodies of the clogging, the mucus, and everything so that the life force energy can flow within us, and you'll completely change your life. You won't believe the life you can live. My boss says, like, I feel like I hired someone else in your office. Like, who is in there? Like, I am extremely productive. I just recently got a promotion and I was given another person's work. And this year, with my More and More Raw, I finished her work and my work a month earlier than I did last year. Like, I am like a machine productivity. Never tired. I've never fallen asleep on I used to eat standard American diet. I would fall asleep after lunch. Just full of energy. And the spirituality, I feel, once you clear your body like this, you can hear a voice. And I hear voices, it sounds like a mental patient, but I hear a voice that to me is the universe speaking to me and guiding me further along on my journey. So I get messages all the time.
Tell us about some messages you received.
You'll talk to your psychologist.
Yeah, I need a therapist here. I'm trying to think of some of the messages I have received. I'll call my mom and I'll give her messages that are things that I would never say. And it comes to me in a way, the way I describe it is, you got mail. It doesn't come through my brain. It's like all of a sudden a message is delivered to my chest. It's just here. And like, I had this really big party, and I didn't plan it as well as I thought I should have. And I came home from the party and I was shaking in bed from being overwhelmed. And I heard this voice say, forgive yourself. And I was like, voice, like, I was mad at the party planner that she didn't go to do a good job. I don't need to forgive myself. I need to go and get her and holler at her. But that's the kind of messages. Forgiving myself was not anything I thought of. So
It wouldn't have occurred to you.
It wouldn't have occurred to me. So the messages are not necessarily in my language of talking, and they're just very clear that they're messages. So this was the voice that guided me further. I said I was, became very productive at work. And then I found myself with some alternative doctors, and I got to this doctor, and he's like, why are you here? You have no symptoms, you have nothing. I'm like, I don't know, but I'm here. And he looked at me and he said, I think you have Lyme disease. By the way I was talking, I had a lot of excitation in my voice. And he gave me blood tests, and I had Lyme disease. And we realized that my son had Lyme disease since birth from me, and that I had Lyme disease back to the time when I was diagnosed with Epstein-Barr in my early 20s. And I remember seeing a bullseye and ignoring it, and then getting the Epstein-Barr, and it's frequently, Lyme disease is frequently misdiagnosed. So I did have Epstein-Barr, but I had Lyme as well, and I went under treatment with him for 3 to 6 months, and I was walking a lot, and all of a sudden I said, I need to start running. and I'm like, I don't like running. I don't like running. And I just started running. So I run now on a regular basis. I'm telling you, I went from somebody that couldn't run to having such energy now that I run 10 miles every weekend, 5 miles twice a week. I just ran the Broad Street, just signed up for the Philly Half Marathon, and I just absolutely love it. So today I eat, as I said, mostly raw